Welcome to Totally Talent Podcast by HR.com, your go-to source for all things talent. Whether you're looking for expert insights on high-volume hiring, the latest trends in recruitment technology, or strategies for building a winning team, we've got you covered. Join us for each episode as we dive deep into the challenges and opportunities shaping the talent landscape today. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Totally Talent on HR.com. My name is Mike Wood. I'm your host, and I'm very thrilled to be joined by one of my good friends in the industry, Talia Edmondson. Hi Talia, how are you?
Hi Mike, I'm great. How are you?
So Talia, I reached out to you because we are friends on LinkedIn, and I saw a horrible thing had happened to you. You got scammed.
Yes.
Or almost scammed. And so I was like, you got to come on the show. You got to talk about this whole thing. So we're going to get into like how you can get scammed on LinkedIn and your horrible story. But let's just set the stage. What do you do currently? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, back in February, I had my 5th business birthday for HR&B Consulting. I know. Hitting that 5-year mark has felt like, it's real. But the work that I do, supporting small, medium-sized businesses, startups to everything ranging from fractional consulting to project work to even the hourly folks who need me on an as-needed basis. I'm all in.
Right. So I'll show everybody because I figured out how to do the sharing the screen thing on Riverside. I will show anybody that just happens to watch this in a video. I want to show them your post.
Okay.
And so this is what caught my eye is that, you've been a professional you've been on your own for 5 years, you just said.
Yeah.
And you're still and you can get as far. So tell me about what happened with your job scam.
Sure. So, and what was interesting about this post is even though there weren't like a ton of reactions, the impressions, I guess because LinkedIn sends you, however many people interact with it. I'm not a data analytics person, so, it tells me things and I go, okay, cool. But it seemed like a whole lot of people interacted with this in some way. Um, part of what's going on now in the general state of the world, I'll say, is for people who are out on their own or solo practitioners like me, you're trying to come up with creative and new ways for business development. Previous, methods of business development are still extremely, valuable in terms of making connections and meeting new people and learning about different businesses that might need you in the future. But in the here and now, we're starting to get kind of creative with what we're looking at in terms of bringing in new clients. And when I say we, I mean, everyone that's a solo practitioner, because there's a lot of people like me. There's a lot of people like me, even in the Philadelphia area. So, trying to generate some more business, I responded to a job post for a small company in the entertainment industry. Not unusual, again, for being Philadelphia based. And I just did a little bit of research, super lightweight, because I thought, is this even something I want to send my information to? So I went to the legit company's LinkedIn page. I saw the people who were on it. There was no dedicated HR practitioner. Very, very standard for the groups that I work with, because a lot of times they don't have someone or they have someone and they're trying to develop them. And so on the surface, it looked exactly like something that I would want to interact with and someone that I would want to connect with. So I went through, and it did appear like they were using a third party to do the sourcing for them, because again, no internal anything HR, no talent acquisition people, nothing. Very, very standard. So I sent my resume over, and a couple days later, I got a message on LinkedIn, and they introduced themselves and they said that they were interested in learning more about me and could I send over a couple dates and times that we could connect. That was 2 days, I think, before Memorial Day weekend. So didn't expect anything to be super quick. Excuse me. In the meantime, my availability had changed. So I went to reach out to the same person who initially sent me that LinkedIn message to let them know. And I noticed that the person's face and name had been replaced with LinkedIn user. And I thought, ooh, okay, that's a little curious because usually that's what happens when a profile no longer exists. So
I would
I,
so I would think that if that, but the other thing is it could be one of those LinkedIn premium things
that's
where
true.
they try to like
The
they show you like
mysterious
the
someone.
shadow of there's
Yeah,
people looking at your profile.
exactly.
We're not going to tell you who unless you give us
Incognito
$40 a month.
mode. Yeah. Good
Okay,
luck
sorry
trying
to
to get
jump in there.
no, no, totally. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, I'm not going to be able to respond to this message because it belongs to an account that's not there anymore. So I went to the email thread that we were using instead of the LinkedIn message. And that's when I realized I probably got so excited about this that I didn't realize the email that they sent to follow up on that LinkedIn message came from an address that was probably not real. And when I replied to give them my updated availability, the email bounced. So in that moment, I thought, okay, I'm grateful that we didn't interact much, and that of course they don't have any of my personal
No.
information. Um, but I went back to the LinkedIn page of the entertainment company and I sent a message to the CEO. And she did let me know that their LinkedIn was hacked and that all of their HR function is already outsourced. And she apologized and everything. And I said, no, it
But
happens.
how do you know she was real?
You know what? I'm gonna, I'm gonna suspend disbelief for the
Okay,
purposes
she
of
probably was real.
just trying to
Yeah.
figure this out. Yeah, she seems legit. And it was the company's, real LinkedIn. So I sent her a screenshot of what the messages looked like and the emails that we briefly exchanged. And wouldn't you know, like 2 days later, the same fake person using a different fake email address reached out to me again. And I thought, and it was the same exact message. Like we had never spoken before because, of course, we hadn't, because you're not real.
Yeah.
So, and representing the same company. So, yeah,
But I'm wondering,
it was,
like, okay, so, but you didn't put anything in their barrier to getting to you. Like they were
no,
still able to do time with you. So what were they looking for? Just
I
access
don't
to your
know.
email?
Or, so I've thought about this a few different ways because, we'll keep talking about all the scams and spams that keep happening to people that are in the market. And I wondered if at some point it would have become we represent people like if you were to pay us a little bit of money, we can put
Yeah.
you out there or something like that. And then eventually they would have gained something from it. And I think in this space that we're in, the job market has not been very typical for several years now. And this time in the market in particular, I think people are really trying to figure out what they need to do to gain a little bit of a competitive advantage over anyone that might be interested in the same exact thing that they're doing. How are they going to
Yep.
separate themselves? Um, and I think again, the standard, who do you know, who's in my network, that is still very, very valuable, but it's not always as beneficial as it once was. And because of that, I think that's really what's opening people up to being taken advantage of.
Yeah, and I think you have a lot more people that are it started off that that's their side gig that they were doing, but now it's your other gig because
Yes.
everybody has to have two incomes to survive.
Yes. Yes.
So you now, no matter if, like, let's say, I mean, you know me from my work human days. I was there for like
Yes.
7 years, but
Yeah.
eventually, in order to protect yourself, you start, speak. You don't want to just be associated with one place.
Yes.
You're Talia from a bunch of places. I'm Mike from like these particular brands, but yet
Yep.
write on my own and do all that. I'm with
Yep.
HR.com, but I do lots of other stuff. So
Yep.
you're constantly looking for different ways for you don't want to miss an opportunity.
That's right.
And so the scammers out there, which make it's a lot easier to scam than it used to be.
Yes.
And it's amazing. So I mean, I was telling you before we started this. So I was laid off last summer, and the minute I put that open to work banner on, I got flooded with just spam. And I don't know if the people set it up that it was almost in real time. So like in real time when I clicked, open to work or whatever, and then put the green banner on, they must have some program running that pulls all the people who just did that.
Gosh.
But I was a little savvy for them. I'm like, I don't need a franchise. I don't need any of this. But there's a lot of crap. I feel like as soon as we get a new way of communicating with each other, it gets ruined by technology. So like social media, garbage now. Email, just tons of spam.
Yes.
I won't answer my phone if I don't know the number.
Same.
So,
besides the fact that I've been on team do not disturb for the last couple of years, which that's a major life hack, by the way. We can talk about that another time, but
I've started to do it. So our mutual friend Lori does it a lot, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's smart because you can still see them, but you don't get the notifications nonstop.
That's right.
And so my 9-year-old just got on to Facebook Messenger with her friends.
Okay.
And so they're in 3rd grade. It's fine. Her cousins do it and whatnot. But just now, like, because you have to sign up as a parent, I somehow have it attached to my phone. So if her friends try to call her, so I get like these like 10-year-old girls or 9-year-old girls that are trying to talk to each other, and you can imagine how many times they dial before they give up. It's like 15. So it's just constantly going. I'm like, I got to get this off my phone.
Oh my God.
So I had to tell my daughter last night. I'm like, you're coming on too strong when you're talking to people like this. When you're like, are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
Oh my God. Oh, that's precious though.
It's the on-demand world, but
don't learn.
Yeah, so like the scams on LinkedIn, the scams. I mean, I've seen different news stories that it's happening more and more.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to think of ways that people can just, I think knowing and being like on your guard when you're talking to anybody, step one. That's, just be aware that this is happening out there. Do your homework. Like you looked up this company, but look up the people that are reaching out to you. Look up if you get a recruiter that's looking at you, look them up. See if you can find any more information on that. And before you send out any personal information, because I know one of the things they'll do is they'll like onboard you to a fake job and you send all your documents over there. But,
and I think that's the first time I ever heard of this, I was still in house. So this whole scam isn't new. And by the time I had heard about it, I was shocked at how advanced it was. And it was a friend of mine who worked at a very similarly situated business, and we would share knowledge and information and the good stuff and the bad stuff with each other all the time. And she reached out to tell us that and specifically my TA team, to say like someone actually believed they accepted an offer from us, and because of their onboarding process, they had started to send information. And now when you're at a point where you're completing an I-9, now you're in the danger zone, right? Because you're doing I-9 information, you're doing your direct deposit. Now it's getting real dicey. So that one we actually had to turn over to like the proper authorities. I don't remember because the director of talent acquisition took it over from me at that point and like had to say like this is what's happening. So at that point you started to see a little bit more of the kind of like a warning of sorts, very gentle though, on careers pages. And I had seen it, I still see it, where it's you will only be communicated with this. So it's either an email address, it's either we're only going to communicate with you through our applicant tracking system, we're only going to communicate with you just to kind of like manage that, that concern that anyone might have about, if you're applying, especially in this market, hopefully you're keeping a spreadsheet. you're keeping a copy of the job that you applied to, you know, all of the newer, I'll call it, I don't want to say tips and tricks because it's like a full-time job getting a job. But you're keeping up with all of the places that you applied to and the folks that you're communicating with. So I think, you know, having the more modern ways, I guess, of looking for a job and keeping track of where you're sending your information can really help you make sure you're not talking to someone who is a scammer or a robot or, you know, something to that effect. So in addition to doing your homework, just keeping your own super thorough notes of how you're interacting with people, and the second that changes, then, you know, you definitely want to dig in a little bit more before you start sending, you know, your mother's maiden name, your social security number, and your, you know, copy of your passport to a place that is not your job.
At least if they stole my information, they wouldn't get far.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like. There's not a lot to take, so they would be able to get like credit, maybe
Yeah.
some, but
Yeah.
there's nothing else.
It was the direct deposit form as part of the
Mhm.
onboarding that really made us go, "Oh my God, like this is intense." And after you know, give this information to the authorities, you don't hear like the police or whoever, they're not going to give you like a status update on what happened. So
Yeah,
we never found out. We never found out what happened, but that was the first time I ever heard of such an elaborate process to get someone's information, and I feel like that's probably still around because why would it go away? It's only getting more advanced. So,
yeah, and and, companies make job seekers jump through so many hoops anyway that there's very when you're in the process, you're like, oh, I'm not surprised they're a little different. Maybe you can talk your way into like thinking
yes,
that anything's legit.
you can.
Um, but definitely, before do not like a recruiter or a new company is not going to ask you for money. They're
Correct.
going to find ways to give you money
Yeah.
for your services. That's how work
Yes.
works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just don't
Yeah.
like keep that stuff very close. But Talia, you're going to be my eyes on the ground for scams in the future. Keep
Okay.
everybody abreast on what's going on. But what are you working on right now that people can kind of follow? Anything on? I know they can find you on LinkedIn, Talia
Yes.
Edmondson.
They can find me on LinkedIn. My website is hrnbconsulting.com. HR like the function that we're in, but also R&B music because 90s R&B, arguably one of the best genres in the whole wide world. So I cannot wait for your children to pick up, you know, some of that in their little
I
recording
call it, yeah,
sections.
I call it my rollerblading music. Because all that, like, I used to go to a roller rink, called Roller Kingdom that's still there.
Okay.
And when I was 10 years old, so like 92,
Mhm.
91, that type of area. And I would
Mhm.
be all
Mhm.
these like, dance hits
Oh
on
yeah.
all the compilations, like, so you like 90s dance hits. There
Yeah.
was all just dancing around to that stuff. So,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
I thought your name was like a take on Airbnb. I didn't know
No.
R&B.
No, R&B
Huh,
music. Yeah. And
cool.
originally it was gonna be like rhythm and blues, like the ampersand. And then a friend of ours told me that it looked like a bank. Like
Does or
BB&T. Like it looked like a financial institution. And then I thought, well, HR in business too, because it's not just, you know, this kind of like add-on cost center. Like if you do it right and strategically, then it's a very much it's part of business. It's not just this like random.
especially in today's world where there isn't any trust
I
and
know.
you could get scammed. So I
Imagine if
brought it right
everyone
back
would
to
just
the topic that we're talking.
yes. And I say this all the I like if everyone would just use how are people not using all of that energy for something good? Like we could get so much work done. I
It
digress.
could,
But
but I could get some old lady to send me her I-9.
right? God. It's terrible.
uh,
Ter-
all right. So thank you for joining me. Everybody, that's Talia Edmondson from HRNB Consulting. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next episode of Totally Talent.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thanks for tuning in to the Totally Talent podcast by HR.com. We hope you find today's episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to explore more episodes and discover valuable resources at hr.com/podcasts, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and making a difference in the world of talent.